Right, my name's Alam Nawaz, and I was born in Liverpool in Toxteth many, many years ago. and my mother was also born here in Liverpool, but my grandmother, which is her mother, she was Catholic. My grandfather, who came from Pakistan in the 1930s as a seaman, lived here and married my grandmother. My father came over in 1950. He was a relative of my grandfather's, and his wish was for my mum to marry my dad. He arrived in 1950, but went to live in Bradford first for the first year, and then after a year he came to Liverpool, where he got employment in Camelade's shipyard. And it was only when he got the employment there that my grandfather allowed my mum to marry him. It was like an arranged marriage. He worked in Camelade's for 23 years as a welder, until he left in the 70s in order to start a business with his friend. His friend became Mr. Yusuf Chowdhury, his name is. He became more than a friend, it was more like a brother to him, you know. Sorry, my father's name was Mr. Shah Nawaz, and he was one of the early Pakistanis to arrive here in the 50s, one of the first in Liverpool. And there's one thing that he always, which he never ever actually forgot, was his identity and his connection with Pakistan. Even to the fact that when he used to go out, he used to wear the Pakistani clothes, this long shirts and, you know, salwar kameez we called them. So he kept this identity up, and he was a very proud person. And it was actually in 1947 when there was the partition between India and Pakistan. It all used to be one before then, and Indians and Pakistanis used to mix in Liverpool, but once the partition took place, there's a friend of the family's whose name was Mr. Ali Sharif. He'd been here, well, I think he came over in the 1940s. When he was here, he became the first president of the Pakistan Association. He formed the Pakistan Association, and the few Pakistanis that were here in Liverpool joined that association, and my father was one of them. But then as years had gone on, you know, obviously people have passed away, and people change, and new people come in, and it was Mr. Said Safaruddin who actually became the president of the Pakistan Association, and helped to build the Pakistan Community Centre, which is in Mulgrave Street today. But prior to that, the office they had was a little was a room on top of a shop in Granby Street, and that's where they used to hold their meetings and that, you know. But my father became vice president and held that position for many, many years. And then obviously when I got older myself, I mean, obviously we used to have functions and things at the Palace Centre where families used to come, because it was the only place where families could actually get together. They had their own place, you know. So on Eid days, Independence days, any other functions that were going on, any other activities, all families would get together because everybody lived in the Toxteth area at that time. As years go by, the Pakistanis, sort of, some of them started bringing the other family members, so they needed to move out of the area because job prospects became better, they became more prosperous, and they started to move out of the Toxteth area towards Smithdown Road, Chilwell, Mosley Hill, further afield like this. And but they still have the Pakistan Centre as their main focal point for getting together for get-togethers, you know, like that. But that's when I actually came in. I sort of, when there was anything that needed to be done at the Palace Centre, it was families that would all help. And my father used to take me and my brother, and we used to, you know, help out there in whatever way we could. And then as years had gone by, I became a member, and then I became a trustee for many years. I think my involvement with the centre was must be over 35 years. When, as I mentioned before, my father, he was an electrical welder in Camelades, and he went into partnership with his very close friend, Mr. Yusuf Chowdhury, and they opened a shop in Granby Street. It was the first halal meat shop to open there. The whole of Granby Street was very cosmopolitan because there was every type of shop you could think of. There was chandlers, fish and chip shops, a fishmongery. There was Mr. Ali Sharif's, he had a haberdashery shop, he was selling clothes. There was even a small Tesco's that had opened up there. There was a Greek shop that people used to go overnight and go and buy the Greek bread from them. It was from one end to the other, it was vibrant. It was like the way London is today, you know, it was open till midnight. Some of the shops were open like this. So anyway, my father and my uncle, as I said, I call him my uncle because he's very close with us and as a mark of respect. So they were then actually running the shop, and they were actually next door to, I think you already met Mr. Humayun Mirza. We became very close friends, and with being Pakistani, they were helping each other out. But father and them also went on to become ship channelers, in the sense that any Pakistani ships that would come to England, not in Liverpool, anywhere, Southampton, Tilbury, Glasgow, wherever it was they had to go, they would be the ones who would actually go there and get the orders to supply the ships with rations, whatever they needed. So they used to travel all around the country there, and a few times I'd gone with them as well. And then there was also, we were supplying all the restaurants, the Asian restaurants in the city centre, and we did this for about 10 years. During that time, I was still studying. I was at Teachers Training College to become a teacher. Became a teacher, but there were not any teaching posts available at that time in Liverpool, and I was applying further afield, but there was nothing available. And I actually ended up working in a children's home, and it was as a residential social worker. And I did that for 10 years, so I went from a house parent up to the assistant principal in those 10 years. I became ill there was quite a lot of stress in this job that was there, and so I left and I went into my own business for 2-3 years. But I then finally, after that, the business I wasn't as successful as my father, because I think they knew which field to go down. And then I went back into teaching, and I taught for 25 years then as a teacher, primary school teacher in Liverpool. Going back to when I was a child, with my father being from Pakistan, there wasn't many Pakistani people in Liverpool, and anyone that did arrive and he found out about, for some reason they seemed to come to our house. They used to say, no, if anybody can help you, it'd be, Mr. Alam Nawaz, go and see him. And sometimes he'd come and he'd help them the best way he could. And see, the pay was very, very low in those days as well, and I think to help with the sort of running costs and cost of living and standard of living, actually it was my grandmother who used to take in lodgers, and any Pakistanis that came, they used to, if we had the room, we would put them up. And I remember that we moved from the house in Upper Stanhope Street, and there was 2 lodges I remember there. One was called Baba, he was from Malaysia, and there was another old man named, we used to call him Buddha, and they were just worked in the local factories. But they stayed with us for around about 5 years before they moved on. And then when we moved to Sandon Street in Toxteth near Faulkner Square, that was a big Edwardian house, so there was 3 floors. So there was, at the time, there was my mum, my dad, my grandmother, which is my mum's mum, who lived with us. And she's the one that more or less brought us up because my mum and dad had to go to work. But she was the one that also, when lodgers came in, she'd be looking after them. She used to give them breakfast and an evening meal, and they'd go out to work. And there was one person, and I can't even say that we treated him as family because he actually stayed with us for 26 years. He lived in Upper Stanhope Street with us, and he came to live with us in Sandon Street, and he was with us for 26 years. He decided to go back to Pakistan to see his family. And when he went there, he was there for 2 months and he passed away. And he died over there. And it was a terrible shock, you know. It was so upsetting because, I mean, imagine somebody being with you for 20 years. He becomes part of the family, doesn't he? We used to have, how many? There was, I think, 4 at the time. I had 4. And one of them ended up becoming my brother-in-law because when I went to Pakistan and got married, it was his sister that I got married to. So I don't think he was too pleased when I came back. He was one of the people who actually came over from Pakistan to look for work. And a lot of people came for work here for a better life because their main source of employment would be in the fields, in villages in Pakistan. And it was very, very hard. And people who came to Liverpool, came to England, must have said, oh, you know, it's really nice standard of living, you've got a nice house, blah, blah, blah. And so they came over for a better life. But it was a bit different from what they expected because over there, you got the extremes. I mean, you got hot weather over there. Here, it's absolutely freezing. Everything, you had an outside toilet and then there was no central heating. You had to put, you know, blankets to keep warm. The pipes were all lead pipes. The water used to be frozen during the winter. So they would get no water, then they had to bring a plumber in who would take I remember seeing this plumber come into our house and he actually got the blowtorch on and he just moving, he was heating the pipe up and you could see the block of ice coming out of the pipe that, you know, with the end that he left open. So they came and they worked very, very hard, and I know my father worked exceptionally hard because for the first 3 years of opening the shop, he actually still worked at Camel Aids. So he used to go to Camel Aids overnight at 7 o'clock, come home in the daytime, later on in the night, maybe 3 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock, as soon as he'd finished his job. And then he'd get an hour or 2 of sleep, and then he'd be up in the morning to go to the fruit market, to go and buy the fruit and veg that they needed for the shop. And then he'd spend all day in the shop, and then maybe go home about 5 o'clock and have a rest, have something to eat before he went to work. Seven days a week from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. overnight. Just, it's like any business, you have to work hard in order to make it successful and to get it established. And so for the first couple of years, this is what we were doing. So every day, 9 to 9. And whenever I had time off from school or college, all my spare time I used to go to the shop to help out because they needed to go somewhere and do something, either deliveries or they had to have appointments because they had to go and supply the ships and things like that. So it was quite hard work at that time. She worked in a place called Plessy's on Edge Lane. It was an electrical company. Then it was Meccano, and after Meccano she worked in Crawford's. But my mum was the only child, and therefore when she used to come home, and any time my mum and grandmother had together, they went out. They did socialise to the local friends, the people that live local. But as well as it's like it's not just being a daughter. She was a friend. It was everything, you know. They were, because there was only the two of them, and so I mean, she mixed up well, because when I say she mixed up well, the people that she knew were, again, it was her father, my grandfather, who met with other Pakistanis in Liverpool, and quite a few of them had married English women, even though they had a wife in Pakistan. They had, for what reason, I don't know, but I mean, if you've seen the film East is East, it might give you a bit of a flavour of it. I was very, very fortunate. I used to think I was one of the luckiest people, because I had two grandmothers that were alive at the same time. There was my father's mother and my mother's mother. Now, I grew up with my mother's mother, my grandmother here. As I said, she was Catholic, but she accepted the Pakistani culture and the religion. So anything that was regarding halal food, that's all we'd be eating. And when my father used to do parties for friends, like during Eid and things like that, she'd be the one that helped cooking, and everybody knew her. And it was 30 years ago when she passed away, and at her funeral, it was held at St. Philly Nerais, which is on Catherine Street, the church there. And we had the priest who actually performed the funeral service. And I always remember the words he just said, he said, "This is one special lady," because he'd never seen so many Muslims in a church in his life. It was the first time in our family we'd experienced a loss. And my other grandmother, my father's mother, she used to come from Pakistan on visits, and my dad doted on her because he was brought up, again, without a father figure, because his father passed away at the age of, I think it was when my father was about 15 years of age, 12 years of age. So he had one brother and one sister. So there's just the three of them, and his mother brought him up. So in that way, I used to think, how lucky am I? I've got two grandmothers, you know. And the thing is, which was, again, it was just sad, is that my grandmother on my mother's side, who passed away, although she was Catholic, she passed away on 17th of March, which is St. Patrick's Day, which is a very special day for people of Catholic religion. But my grandmother on my father's side, she passed away 6 weeks earlier, which was on the 14th of February. So they're like dates you can't forget, because 14th of February is like Valentine's Day, isn't it? So I thought the lives were very similar, very parallel, because my grandfather passed away before I was born. So, and she never remarried. And when my father's mother passed, her husband, my grandfather, passed away, it was about the same time. And so they both had like this parallel life, parallel road, because they grew up, they never got married again. Mum had, my dad sort of, my grandmother had one child, although my other grandmother had 3 children, but they both brought them up in their own ways, you know. With being born in Toxteth, it was an area of mixed races. So there was Pakistanis living there, there was Africans living there, West Indians living there, Chinese living, everyone there. So even when I went to school, it was all mixed in school, you know. And I don't know, I think I was quite big for my age at that time. So I can't even remember ever getting into a fight or an argument with anyone. So I got on with everybody, you know, whether they were in those days it was, you know, the Africans, the West Indians, Jamaicans in schools, English. Obviously, it was predominantly English in the school. I went to Windsor Street School, and from there we went to Granby Street School, and then we went to a school called Paddington, which has now been demolished, and it's Paddington Village because they built apartments for students and that. But the schools, they were just full of, you know, it was just mixed. It's funny in the sense that the Pakistanis that were in the school, they didn't get into trouble. They weren't involved in any fights or anything, but there would always be fights between blacks and whites in their own way, you know, on the yard, outside school and whatever. But I couldn't understand why, because I didn't feel that, wait a minute, I'm not exactly white, but I'm not exactly black either, you know, in between. And I thought, well, we can mix and get on with everybody. What's the problem here, you know? But when it comes to racism and in schools, I never ever experienced it. I've never experienced it. And the first time I actually did experience it, it wasn't in school. It was when I was working in a children's home. And what had happened, we'd gone to Cornwall, the group, some staff got together and we went on holiday to Cornwall. And we were travelling, we'd gone onto a coach and we were travelling from one village to another. And I was sitting with one of the staff from the school. There was like groups of us. And some elderly people got on and they sat just on the opposite side, but just one like row back. And I heard them saying, these bloody foreigners that come here, he said, I don't understand. They come here and take our jobs and now they're taking our women. And I looked like that, and the lady said to one of the staff, she said, ignore it. And I said, no, I'm going to say, he said, no, ignore it. He said, put it down to the ignorance. And I just thought, this is where, when you're in Cornwall, you don't see any black people down there or anyone that's, I would say, half caste because of the mixed race or whatever like that. Maybe, like I said, I don't look English, and so when it's probably something that was new to them or alien to them, and that was the very first time I'd experienced. Oh, sorry, not the first, second. Let me get to it. No, it was around about the same time, because when I was in the children's home and I was working my way up through stages to become what I was becoming. I became like a team leader. There was the post was advertised, and I remember 4 of us actually applying for this team leader's post. 2 of the staff had been there 15 years. One had been there 15 years, and the other one had been there nearly 19 years before me. I'd only been there 4 years, and there was another person, and we all applied for this post. And actually, I got it. The lady who'd been there sort of 15 years, she just said, come here, you, and she rolled her sleeves up, you know, pretending to joke and say, oh, you know, I need to have, let's have it out, you know, just jokingly. And I said, oh, come on, Peggy, don't be like that. So, but the other lady who'd been there a while, she took it really, really badly. She took it badly that she went off sick for 2 weeks. And before she went off, she was saying to one of the staff she said exactly the same words this lady said in Cornwall. She just said, he said, these people that come here and take our jobs and take our women, who the hell do you think they are? And this member of staff said, how dare you speak like that? He said, Alan works very hard and he's not disliked by anybody. And it was, you know, you all applied, and obviously they all thought he was suitable for the post. But then what they said to me afterwards was, there's an example of why she never got the job. Because you can't be there 19 years and expect to get this promotion or whatever, or applying for a post if you've got an attitude like that. So anyway, I had the post, and then she tried to make things a little bit difficult for me, but I just overrode it. In the sense, she was saying, oh, you know, the children are saying this about you, saying this. I said, don't worry about it, I'll be okay. Don't worry, be okay. And yeah, that was the only time I actually experienced racism. When I actually started teaching in schools, there was one in Maghull. I was there for 10 years. In Borough Green, I was there for 10 years. And it was, they don't know what to expect until you fit in. It's to accept what they're doing, you know, and you don't put any blockades up, you don't make things awkward. And that's what I found. Wherever I've gone, I've just tried to just be yourself and treat the main thing is you treat everybody with respect, no matter who they are and what they are. And you, that's how you get it back. And that's how I've always got it throughout life. And even with the PAL Centre, I was there for, as I said, for over 30 years. But people find it hard to change in views and attitudes and things like this. A friend of my father's, whose name was Akbar Ali, and he was a Liberal councillor, and he actually put my name forward to become a magistrate. And I said, I don't have a law degree. He said, no, you don't have to have a law degree. It's people, it's a layman. You come from, you know, you're a member of the society that will come in. I said, go ahead, if you want to do it, go do it, you know. And I did. I went through this process where I was interviewed 3 times, and then they appointed me in 1996. So I've been a magistrate for over 26 years. But in that meantime of being a magistrate, I mean, you bring in different, you can always bring something different every day when you're on the bench with the magistrates, because similarly, like when you're in school, I mean, every time for example, the teaching religion, and it comes to the Islamic religion, about becoming a Muslim and anything like that, they only follow through what's in the books. But sometimes the books are not right in what they're saying, and so they'll come to me and say to me, you know, what do you think, is this right? I always remember in school, it was in Norris Green, a very tough area that was, and there was a lady in school for 25 years, and I'd gone there, and I remember when I started, and the first thing I said to them was, it was near Christmas, and I was saying, you know, isn't anybody doing the lottery here? Because every time I go into a school, you have a lottery syndicate, you know, and we all put something in, you all try to win something. And he said, oh, we used to do, we don't do that. And he said, do you want? And I said, can I start? And he said, yeah. You're not supposed to gamble as a Muslim, you know. And there's me starting the syndicate off for the lottery. And it turned out that we actually, I think it was in the 3rd week, no, 6th week, we actually won a lump sum of money. It was about, I think, £600. And they were all made up because it paid for their Christmas night out, which we were having, all schools have, you know. So we had this night out, and but after that Christmas, I didn't carry on with that. I left, and I think they didn't bother, you know. But they were all made up that they'd won a Christmas night out free of charge, because the money that we had was able to buy the food and the drinks and everything like that. And then when it came to Ramadan, they said to me, so how long, what's this Ramadan about? I said, you're all teachers, you're supposed to know if you're teaching the religion, you know, teaching about Islam and all. And I said, you don't eat basically from sunrise to sunset, and it's for 30 days. He said, but you can have a drink. I said, no, you can't have a drink either. Oh, you can't drink? I said, no. And then they said, well, can't you shut the curtains and pretend it's dark? I said, but okay. I said, that's a good idea. I said, but you're only fooling yourself, you know. And they used to learn a lot of things, and I explained a lot of things to them. And then one day I was coming down the stairs, and this lady said to me, Alam, she was one of the senior teachers. They've been there, like I said, 25 years. She says, I just want to say thank you. And I said, why? What have I done? Because I always used to help with different things, after school, activities or whatever like that. She said, no, I just want to say thank you. She said, for showing me what a Muslim is. And I said, why? What do you mean by showing you what a Muslim is? She said, because the only thing I've seen about a Muslim is about being terrorists, what they show on TV. And he said, but you just blown me away with, you know, the fact that you're a Muslim, you're Pakistani, yet you're nothing like what the Pakistanis or Muslims are portrayed as, you know. So in this field of education, that you can do a lot to the younger generation to explain things to them. And similarly, we're being in court, and then from there I went on to become, I joined the Board of Visitors, which is an independent monetary board for All Course Prison. And I was on the board for 4 years there, so you're going around the prisons and meeting inmates, and it was something different, you know, which I don't know, I was drawn into that, I think. Although I've retired from teaching, I'm involved with a school called St Vincent School in West Derby. It's a school for blind children, and the headmaster there is a very, very close friend of mine. We've been friends for 30 years, because when I started teaching, it was his school that I taught in first, and I met him and we just hit it off, and we kept in touch all the time. So when we've done projects or anything at the PAL Centre, he's been involved bringing schools in and taking part in there, bringing the Rotary Club, this is a charity, into the PAL Centre, and then anything he does, and he gets me involved. We brought 3 years ago, during just before COVID, at the time of COVID, we managed to bring 10 children from Indonesia who were blind children, and they stayed in the school for 6 weeks, and they were Muslims. So my involvement was to make sure that they were properly catered for regarding food, accommodation, anything, all their needs and everything like that. And we thought that the teachers that came with them were ordinary teachers, and they weren't. But they were so humble that they turned out to be professors and ministers from the government, who then went back and the sight box, which is a box which we gave to, we sent all around the world at the time, is sports equipment for children, blind children, to be able to play with, to learn from things with. And they took that box to Indonesia, and I've got the book. The professor there actually wrote the book of all the equipment that they used, how they used everything like this, printed it and gave it out to schools, a lot of Indonesian schools in Indonesia. But he opened another school where he's got 100 blind children in school, and an orphanage as well. And it's all because of our interaction. I went for a holiday and to Pakistan. My father said, go there, you know, go and see uncle and this and that. So I said, okay, let's go. And it was during the holidays, summer holidays, July and August, and everything was going fine until towards the end of the holiday, when I got a little bit of pressure from family, because they wanted me to get married. My grandmother especially, because when my father came here in 1950, I said, and he got married in 51, what she kept saying to me was, I never seen your father's wedding, and it'd be so nice to see your wedding, and you know, this is my wish and this is my wish. And I'm finding it very hard to to accept what she was saying. But then I was thinking about my own father, how much he doted on his grandmother, and if anybody upsets his mother, that's it, you know. And then my uncle was saying, oh, come on, it'll be good, and everybody in the village can see it. They've never seen your dad's. And then my auntie, my dad's sister, she was saying, oh, it'll be very nice if we had. And I just went on in India, and I said, all right, go on. And he said, come on, we'll show you this day. And he took me to this house, and it turned out to be, as I told you before, the sister of the lodger that we had in our house. And the lodger, he was actually in the Air Force in Pakistan. Then he came, then I think he took some redundancy or something, he left there. And he came here and he worked in Rylands in Warrington, and then he went on to work in Ford's. And he was very close to my father because my father knew of the family because he was from the same area. It was like, although we lived in a village, that town was like 4 or 5 miles away, and they knew through their own relationships that they have with everybody. And I got married. I had 2 children. I had 2 boys. Eldest one is Sakib, then there's Amr. And when they were about, I think when they were about 7, 8 years of age, there was only 2 years difference in both of them. They went to Pakistan and they were there for 2 years, and then they came back. So I thought, well, okay, they've, to keep the contact, to get a flavour of Pakistan. That's where the family is from. This is where the heritage is, because And so they came back here, and so you go to school, you have your friends, you do what you're doing, and then you go through that process where you go to university. The youngest son went off to Newcastle to do town planning, and he was very much influenced by what goes on in university with students and partying and things like that, so he went a little bit off the rails, in my opinion. But he came back and he said, I'm going to take a year out. He said, I'm going to work. And I said, whatever you want to do. I said, it makes me laugh how you all want a year out. You've only just finished school. You go to university for 1 year and then you want to take a year out. Wait a minute, why don't you just finish the 3 years off and, have a long break? Anyway, he took time off and he worked he worked for N-Power. And again, he worked himself up and became a manager, and he had so many people working for him. And that's how he met his wife. He met his wife because she was a girl whose father was Egyptian and her mother was English, very similar to us, And but she didn't stay very long, but he still had contact with her. But the thing was, her father used to take her to work and bring her back because he was quite strict and he didn't want, especially the girls he always protected them because he had 3 daughters. And then when they started seeing each other, my son went to the house and he said, you've come here. He said, yeah. He said, and so who are you? And he said, oh, my father's he's born in Liverpool, but my grandfather, Mr. Nawaz, everybody knows him in Liverpool, And he made inquiries, and it turned out, funny thing was, with him being Egyptian, our GP was an Egyptian, and he was very close friends with my father. And he came and said, he said, I had somebody come and asking about your grandson. And my father said, what are you talking about? He said, oh, he's the grandson. He said, yeah. He said, oh, he's likes the scale and they want to know what kind of family. He said, and I just told them, you couldn't have asked for a better family, like that. And it was him that actually, by my son going to his house, that brought him back on track a little bit, because then he became, he wanted to learn more about religions. I think religion plays a big part for children at the very beginning. They need to see, everybody's got their own interpretation of Islam and being a Muslim and all that, but the Quran, it's a holy book that if you follow it, you can't go wrong, in my opinion, because it's a code of life. It's what you should be doing, and it's all scriptures of past holy books. They've taken bits out of from the Bible, from the Torah, from the Zabur. They're all these holy books. And they're just basic principles. Like one, you know, you shouldn't tell lies. You shouldn't steal. You shouldn't kill. You shouldn't disrespect elderly people. You shouldn't disrespect your parents. And they put so much emphasis on respect for parents, you know. So it's a code of life that everybody, you know, it's there for you to follow. So he started getting into that, and in the sense that when they got married, that they went off to Yemen and stayed there for 7 years, because the children that he had, they wanted them to have this foundation of being a Muslim and what, you know, what you should be doing and things like this. And you know, he's got 5 children now, so I've got 5 grandchildren, and 2 of them are Hafiz. Hafiz meaning that they know the whole Quran off by heart in Arabic. So the eldest one, he's been back here, studied here, gone back to Yemen again, and the children, they've come here, they've done homeschooling, because they're trying to keep them away from the influence of the society that is today, because it's all to do with phones and TikTok and, you know, Facebook and designer gear stuff and all that. And to some point I can see that, but I always feel that you've got to let them have this experience, because they will want to know later on, because when they eventually come back here, I mean, they're here now, but 2 of them are still studying in Yemen because they want to do, I don't know, they're doing some sort of degrees in Arabic and things like that there. He left town planning and he learned about religion and everything, and he's now one of the sheikhs in Liverpool, where he goes and gives talks and presentations all around the country, and he's very well known, especially in the sort of Blackburn area and around. He has an awful lot of followers on there, so he's settled in his own life. But when you talk to him, just like I'm talking to you now, he's down to earth. You can get the Scouse accent as well, you know, that comes out. The other son, Saka, who's the eldest one, he left school, started a degree, went to Pakistan for a holiday, met his wife there, wanted to get married, got married, came back, and then got a job in order to earn money, because you have to have, I think you have to show that you're earning so much money to look after your wife if you bring her over, you know. So he did that, brought her over, and he's got 3 children, and he's well settled. He kept on changing his jobs quite frequently, but he's been stable now in the sense he's got a manager's job with O2, and he's doing this, and now he's also now branching out to doing business. So he's settled, but he's not as, I don't know, I have to be careful because I don't see him that much, but I mean, he's here every other day. The other one's so busy in his work that I only see him occasionally, even though they live in Liverpool. But it's anything that you do, you've got to have a balance. You've got to have a balance. You can be, if you go far to one side, you're missing out on the others, you know. And if if you're being influenced by society today, where you go out and enjoying yourself, having parties and things like that, and then the religious side suffers, you know. And I think it doesn't matter what you're doing in life, you've got to have a balance. And where they're concerned, they're both bringing up the children, in the sense that one's bringing up more religiously, the other one's bringing up, well, come on, you need to get something academically first, because if you're staying here, you need qualifications in order to get a job. And so he emphasized that side. The other one emphasized, well, I'd like you to get a job, but I want you to practice more on your religion. So it's, you know, it's like a juggling act. So, but the benefits here in what we're doing now and what they're doing is that he's been back to Pakistan a few times, taking the children with him. Amr, the youngest one, who's been more or less influenced by the Arabs in Yemen. Although he still says, I need to go back to Pakistan to meet the family. I haven't been for 30 years, and you know, it'd be nice to meet up. But the people that he knew in Pakistan, half of them are dead anyway. They've passed away. because it's been that long and they were older generations, you know. And but Saqib, the eldest one, with his connections, because he's got relatives, he's got in-laws that are in Pakistan, he'll go there and he has a very good relationship with his in-laws, his brother-in-law and that. It's something that he can pass on to his own children, and by doing this, this is what will help for future generations to know where they actually come from. And I can only do what I think is best, my own way, but everybody's got their own way of doing things. Some people are not interested. They say, oh, well, you know, I'm not well and it's their life and let them do what they want and all that. But I don't see that as being the answer. I think you have to have, I think the main part that plays in everything is religion on both of them, because even with Saqib, he's teaching religion, Islam to his own children, but he's also maintaining the culture there. And when you talk to either of them, they will tell you, they know a lot of stories about my father. And I said, if it wasn't for our grandfather, you wouldn't be here today. And if it wasn't be for my dad, you wouldn't be here today. Because it's the lifeline, isn't it? It's the bloodline that's going through. But everybody has experiences of different. During your time, the experience that you experienced then is completely different from, like for example, my youth when I was your age, completely different from what it is today. And when you get married and you have children, and when they get to your age, now what you are now, it's going to be completely different again. But to keep that connection, you've got to have something like this, and always, you know, what's nice is that if they can go back to the country where they originated from. And I think that's the only way you're going to keep this heritage going.